Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Anthony, and today we're taking a look at Toziuha Knight Dracula's Revenge, a classic Castlevania-inspired platformer by Danny Garay. As I've mentioned before, I have nothing against clone games on my channel. The difference between an homage and a ripoff comes in how well they pull it off. So, let's see how well this one manages. In Dracula's Revenge, you'll take on the role of Xandria, an alchemist that can manipulate the iron around her to create short-lived weapons. She's been granted a suicide mission from the Order of Alchemists to head to Transylvania and slay the Dark Count. And while we're on the subject of backstory, I do have to give credit where it's due. The game actually takes a bit of time to briefly reference the events behind Vlad the Impaler and works them into the plot. In my experience, most modern versions of Dracula seem to forget that he's inspired by a historical persona at all.
Don't you dare call me that. Saint Dracula.
As for the gameplay itself, you'll travel through a handful of stages to brave Dracula's castle. In true platformer fashion, you'll be doing a lot of jumping about both to traverse the stages and to dodge enemies and their attacks. Your primary weapon is a metal whip that you can use to attack foes at short range. You can only attack straight forward unless playing on easy mode, where you can strike in 8 directions. Although even on normal mode, it's important to note that your whip attack actually follows the path of the animation. This is a small thing, but it can be important as it means you actually do get to strike enemies that are just above you when you swing your whip. You'll also be able to collect orbs of iron, which you can use to create secondary weapons to attack with. They vary in cost, but most of them should feel familiar. My favorites are the boomerang blade and the saw disc, both of which have good potential for hitting enemies multiple times. You can also hold up to do a super attack with your held item, but this comes with a noticeable delay. I rarely found myself using it. At the end of each level, you'll have a unique boss fight. In classic Castlevania fashion, the game is pretty short with only 6 levels in all. It took me about 4.5 hours to go through the game. Although brief, it definitely invokes difficulty from a different era of gaming, back when we used to talk about games being Nintendo hard. The game has a counter that keeps track of every time you die, and playing on normal difficulty, I lost a total of 91 times before finally seeing the game through to victory. Upon beating the game, you'll also unlock a hard mode in case that wasn't enough of a challenge for you. You'll also find a menu option for a boss rush, but if you try to boot it up, it currently tells you that it's coming in a future patch. On the presentation side of things, the game is pretty solid. The music has an appropriately creepy atmosphere, the sprite work is good, and the backgrounds look great. What isn't so great are the character portraits you get whenever there's a bit of dialogue. These just don't seem to be as good as the actual sprites that we see in action. Story is quite light, but what do you expect from a game trying to relive 90s platformers? I also feel the need to briefly criticize the translation. While it is understandable, it is a little rough. It doesn't need to be completely retranslated, but it would have been nice to have a native English speaker proofread it before release. All in all, Dracula's Revenge does exactly what it sets out to do. It recaptures that feeling of Castlevania from the 8 and 16-bit eras with some obligatory Symphony of the Night references thrown in for good measure. If you like Castlevania, you'll enjoy this title. If you don't, avoid it. It's a short but very challenging game that does a great job of paying tribute to the classics. It certainly doesn't break any new ground, but that's not what it's trying to do in the first place. In conclusion, I find Toziuha Knight Dracula's Revenge to be worthy of a solid 7.4 out of 10. Dracula's Revenge is currently available for PC via Steam. It should also be noted that the developer is already working on a sequel, which will be a Metroidvania. If you're interested in purchasing or learning more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Dracula's Revenge? What classic clones do you enjoy? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.